how can I be calm? I haven't felt this way in 10 years. And then you just show up and now you're fleeing to the US. I think that's literally what he said, because I was just like, oh my God. Yeah, she's just like fleeing, and he's like, yes, I don't know. I messed up. Like, he's just like, I messed this up, damn it. And so she just laughs in amazement, and then it's sort of talking to herself, and she's like facing back to the street, and she's like, what is going on? Am I the drunk one? Like, she's just trying to grasp, like, what the hell, because it just completely took a turn over here. And then he just sort of quietly, you know, turns back to her, and he's just like, I just confess my feelings for you. And she looks at him, and he's like, is it okay that I like you? And she's still looking at him. And so he's like, you're coming back, right? After a year? Oh. So she really just doesn't know what to say. And she's like, we're too drunk. Like, we both drank too much. And he just sort of nods, and he's like, I guess I am a bit drunk. I'll ask you again after I get some sleep and sober up. And then he just leaves. And she's just still standing there. And then it cuts to them in their respective apartments, and he's just sitting on his couch completely cringing, and she's just like dazedly sitting, and it's just like, what just happened? And she's talking about, like, who confesses their feelings like that? And he's just talking about, where did it all go wrong? He can't believe that he had said it like that. So the next morning, she's in her office, and there's this large bouquet of peony blooms, and you hear him knock on the door, and he's over there, and he lets her know that he got up at dawn to go to the flower market to get those for her. And so she sort of turns back to the flowers, and she's like, I didn't expect you to go this far to apologize. And he's just like, I didn't get those to apologize. And then he has this small smile. And then he goes to sort of a straightforward face to very straightforwardly say that it's to finish the confession that I started last night. And then he's just like, have a good day, and leaves. And she just sort of turns back to the blooms, and then just sort of like smiles and smells the blooms, and she's going, and she's putting her bag away and putting her coat on, and then she gets a call, and here's where everything turns. And now that I'm remembering, I'm just like, oh, I don't want to talk about this. So the call is from her doctor friend, and we don't hear that side of the conversation, but her demeanor just starts to change, and she's like, what are you talking about? And then she gets off the phone, and she's walking out of her office, and at first she's still just sort of dazed and sort of blindsided, really. She's walking, and then she starts running to the elevator, and one of her technicians is like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? And so she's just sort of flustered and trying to keep track, and she's like, I don't think I can see any of my patients today. Can you please take care of them? And the elevator is just not getting there. He can see that she is getting emotional, and she runs to the exit staircase. Yeah, I think the next scene is you just see the brain scan, and she's over there, and her doctor friend is telling her that, yeah, she was worried when she got the sonogram results, and they took a CT scan, and he questions, like, didn't she even tell you? And Mijo, of course, is like, no. And he says that she needs to take a test to be sure, but I think it's stage 4. And Mijo then just sort of like rounds on him and is like, how can you even tell that from just looking at this and not doing another test? And he says that he has a previous patient in with the similar conditions, and that she needs to come in to get the PET scans. And Mijo then is just breaking down basically, and she's angry and it's just like, how could she not have, like, she's just talking out loud at this point. It's like, how could she not have known up until now, like stage 4? I mean, so yeah, we're back in her clinic and Sonu's in his office, and he sort of looks at his phone for a second and then does decide to pick up and call her, and it rings a couple of times and goes straight to voicemail. And he does go to her sister's office and knocks on her door and then asks her, like, have you heard from her? And she says no, she's not picking up. And then she says, this has never happened before. It's so even she is sort of worried. We see Mijo just in her car, and she is still processing and just completely dazed, and she's starting to get angry. But like, oh yeah, then Sonu is sort of leaving his office and looks into her office and sees the flowers still there, and you can see that he's worried. like, um, and he gets a call, and it's Jinsuk, and he was supposed to meet him for drinks that night, but obviously clearly forgot. And Jinsuk is like, oh, don't worry about going to the place, just come to my office and we'll drink somewhere around here. And he's like, yeah, okay, I'll come. And so he's in Jinsuk's office, and Jinsuk is like, so, like, how's work going? And he's talking about how, like, oh, it's great, everyone's nice. And Jinsuk is like, I don't know about Mijo being nice. I'm sure you're the nice one. And Sonu just sort of, like, smiles softly at this, but then suddenly the door opens, and Mijo comes in, and she looks at Jinsuk. I don't even know if she fully registered that Sonu is over there, because she's just zeroed in on Jinsuk, and she walks up to him and she grabs him and she tells him that I'm going to kill you. And she keeps saying that. And then she's like beating his chest, and he's like, Mijo, what happened? And all she's saying is just, I'm going to kill you. And then she's talking about how it's his fault. And the scene cuts away then to flash forward to the funeral, and we see now that it is a funeral for Chanyong, and her picture is over there with all the flowers, and you see the girls now, and they're crying. I'm about to cry. So then it cuts back to this office, and she's still just sort of like, she's got her hands on him and is shaking him and like hitting his chest, and is just saying that it's his fault. It's all his fault. And then she's starting to just break down in a more just devastated way, and says that it's my fault too. It's our fault. And she just goes to the ground and is sobbing her heart out. And Sonu, like, he had stood up, I guess, when she came in, and he slowly walks over to her and kneels down. And what I love completely is he did not try to hold her or pick her up or anything like that. All he did was very slowly and softly put his hand on her hand, on the floor. Like, I'm so terrible in moments, especially moments like that, of how to react properly. I'm actually one of those sick people where when I hear about someone's death, my immediate reaction is to smile, but it's like a disbelief sort of thing, and then it kicks off. But that is my initial reaction a lot of times, and I hate it. But anyway, I freeze up in moments like that. I just don't know how to handle it. So seeing this was just because he does care for her and wants to be there for her and wants to convey that he is there for her in support to stand by her side, but he also is new to her life and does not actually have any sort of place in it, so doesn't quite really even have the right. But he's still, in a small way, but a very monumental way, just doesn't even like curl his hand under to hold her hand. He just places it on top of hers, and it's just this solid comfort. And you can hear her voiceover, and she's saying, like, because she was wondering, like, instead of going to Chanyong, why did I go to Jinsuk first after hearing that? And goes on to say, like, on that day when everything felt hopeless, the touch of his hand was warm. And the episode ends there. I don't know if I'm ready for episode 3. I don't know if I'm mentally prepared. I mean, the preview alone was already just very emotions driven. I mean, I highly doubt that Mijo is going to the States now. Like, how can she? Her best friend of 2 decades has stage 4 brain cancer. This drama is going to be so interesting because it's still about their love stories. Like, they hinted at that in the first episode, talking about how 39 was the age that they met their soulmates, and also said goodbye to one of them. So clearly there is a connection here between Mijo and Sonyu, and then they're going to build eventually the connection between Juhi and Hyunjun, the new restaurant owner. But these are very new, fresh relationships that are having to start under just turmoil. Like, what timing for all of this to be going down? And if I were in Mijo's position or Juhi's position, I would feel so guilty to even be entertaining thoughts of connecting with someone else when saying a best friend doesn't even sound deep enough. They have a very, like, deep connection. It's like a sisterhood. And like, one of them's gonna die soon. How do you even grow? And I'm sure that's going to come up as an issue where, and I don't see Sonyu trying